Well, Article 3 can only tell other courts to do what they're supposed to do in matters of equity when there's no penalty set for the failure to do something, but there is a prescribed duty to do the thing. Then the writ of mandamus comes in and says, hey, you're not doing your duty, and although there's no prescribed penalty for it, if you don't do your duty, then we'll have to escalate it somehow, I guess. I don't know that much about it yet, but well, I guess what people are afraid of is the courts could then kind of run the country. They get all these writs of mandamus when people weren't doing stuff. But you're supposed to have a reasonable criteria about how long is long enough to get your duty done, like 5 prayers a day. If you don't make the prayer on time, you can make it up later. If you get too many prayers that you owe, you go to mosque, you get credit for 3 days of prayer for praying at mosque. But at some point, you become so delinquent that you are no longer, doing your fiduciary duty. I guess, 9 months exemption for being pregnant, or some part thereof. When you're pregnant, all your prayers are forgiven. So to the degree we're on this technologic cusp here of everything changing, the way World War II was on its technologic cusp of the fire and the atom, we're on the information technologic cusp and the genetic, which is information. And there's some tension about if who doesn't use what level of weapons they have now, those weapons are going to become obsolete. And will who be up with the more current offense and defense, or will who lose their competitive advantage? Like you can imagine one smart biologist showing up and saying, okay, was I right? And some guy from the Center for Disease Control says, you were right. And the guy says, okay, if my heart stops beating, you know what's going to happen. And then that person is then in charge to some degree, huh? So, our goal is to make sure nobody panic and say, I got to use what I have now before that happens. And that means a lot of the ancient aggression that is embedded in each and every UN member's population has its components, right? I guess there are maybe a few nations that are really idyllic, huh? How big are they? Or you? But we have our share in America, as everybody knows, and our goal is to reassure those guys that we can handle it, and to reassure China with 97% homogeneity in the gene pool that that's why this vehicle that's so important, you could put in any tag you need to, that they're okay. But you can't just go on words alone. You have to have some kind of proof. So maybe by the next time, be able to think of some proofs, or hostages exchanges where important people from one country go and live in another country. So you know that everyone loves them so much that no one's likely to intentionally set. But then you got to worry about the unintentional, loose cannon, bang, bang, Maxwell, Edison, late nights all alone with the test tube. The Ollie North loose cannon in the basement. And there's where attention duty becomes valuable, because not only are you paying attention to people asking the questions, you're getting to look at your fellow attention duty workers. And you can see Maybe that guy in Connecticut that took his mom's gun and went and shot up the elementary school. When he showed up for attention duty, maybe people would get some vibes off of him that, like, a little too quiet or not interested enough in what. Or, of course, you want to be careful about the tyranny of the majority and these other people starting to judge you and you having to explain yourself. But the process of testing to participate in the attention duty, like the DMV driver's test, there's possibilities there to get an idea of how who's wired. And then it's a matter of developing subtle ways and means to do follow-ups, I guess, right? And say thank you for your jury duty or your attention duty on such and such a date, and it was a pleasure working with you, and what are you up to now? Would you like to participate in an Outward Bound seminar in 3 days? Just you in a tent, survival skills. Who knows, maybe the person's personality would get redirected from the right invitations. And so instead of wanting to take the gun and shoot up the elementary school, the person would want to know they had the gun all their life and never had to use it because everything works so well that the insurance policy wasn't necessary to exercise. So that's what who can do with some bandwidth. Did it cover enough different things? The travel to North Korea got restricted. Who visiting there might be a kind gesture. Whose problem is who's spent way too much money on whose insurance policy and all this storage stuff has eaten up incredible amount of funds that otherwise would be available for traveling. So instead of being flush with savings, organized and ready to go, who's basically broke and facing a struggle to terminate and reduce storage. Whose own fault? At the same time, it brings who more into contact with the grim realities that everybody faces, less able to float in the petri dish of an inherited income. But then, who works pretty hard and doesn't float that much, but still. So who has to wrestle with that? At one point, who asked to raise some funds to try to be fair and make enough effort to keep things going, but who's so busy answering questions and responding to so many different things that and the operating system is so unconducive to producing any kind of chronologic record of what is done. You probably have to go into Apple. Maybe they've gotten it upgraded some, that the updates should have like a questionnaire on them. What do you want to do? What do you do? Did you know you could do this now? What do you want to do that you can't do now that you want to be able to do? Instead of just pushing a button and going up to 3.3, you'd have a questionnaire you could participate in. And their problem is they are playing the game for different reasons than the user is. And they should be able to satisfy both purposes. And I'm not sure. I got a universal clipboard. That was as close as I heard to anything getting universal. So that's a heartbreaker. And who sort of abandoned personal contacts to the degree that unlike J.P. Morgan or somebody from the robber barons era, where they had, like, these people they went to school with or grew up in New York with or met on the street, and they had them there, and they had a team, and they could say, okay, we're going to build this, or this is not good enough, we're going to do it this way, and it would get done. All I can do is put the ideas out there and pray to God that who will put them into their system, and that's a lot weaker position than the other. Of course, the other then ties you down. Every day you got to show up and be talking with these people and stuff, and instead of wandering around the internet free as a bird. So there are trade-offs both ways. And I apologize to the degree that when I am out and about, I may not be able to come out or open enough to convey this kind of feeling that resides near the hub of my wheel, despite the spinning spokes. Bruce McDougall's analogy from college days. So who gets the spinning of the wheels is, oh, come on, this, okay, give me some love, and you got to show me some sign that you really care about me and not just writing. And who's kind of exhausted and with a dog and in pain from their joints and hasn't said a prayer and so plus there's the whole matter of access and legality and who knows who is and who might be and what else. So you have to get up enough to treat everybody friendly so that nobody sticks out like a sore thumb, right? And you try to be friendly to everybody. And with enough rest, you can do that, or who can do that. But when you overwork, and there's so many outstanding unfinished things locally in the room and outside the room, it starts to mount up. And that kind of pressure, would break a weaker soul. And that's part of the reason I think that the U.S. military and whoever else is involved with whatever else is going on kind of respect who they think who's one tough nut to put up with all this minimalism of amenities and focus like 190%, 95% on the give peace a chance work. And people respect that despite the lack of organization, the lack of travel, the lack of a schedule. In time, who can do that, who has done that kind of thing in the past, right? Who should be able to return to it. As part of the goal by next year, I guess. There's not much time. So I think that, what else? I guess all parties involved to be responsible should make sure both North Korea, South Korea, and northeastern China, Japan, those all have evacuation capabilities. So if the good intentions and the embedded good intentions that most people aren't aware of aren't enough to keep things peaceful. I heard that